Good afternoon. So, is this thing even going to go live? What's it go? Oh, maybe it's going live now. Hi guys, I'm Marshall Burtcher. And if you don't know me, I help codependents, people pleasers, people who are really struggling to know themselves, reconnect back to their value, voice, and vision, back to their happiness ultimately, and discover for themselves what brings them joy, and then make the choices that really bring that out. So, this is impromptu. I don't usually do videos on Saturday. I'm usually out doing something on a Saturday. But this has come up a fair bit in recent conversation over the last couple of days, and it's not a concept people get. So I want to clarify what this is, help you understand the power of what I'm talking about here. Before I do that, though, I actually need to go here and share it to the community. If you're looking for a place where you have refuge, protection, kindness, love, being witnessed, being confronted, being held accountable, being given a structure in which to heal and explore life beyond codependency, discover who you are beyond that, join the community. The link is above on Facebook. It's below on YouTube. And if you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. Okay, so let me find me here. Okay, there we go. And I'm going to post this to the group, to the community. Okay, thrive beyond codependency. All right, let's do this. Oh, I need to put that in my emotional. Me and typing. Legitimization. Ooh. Spelling is not one of my strong points. I was once, and no joke, guys, in high school, I was known for two things: my technical capabilities with computers and my creative writing skills. But I was also an individual who would receive A on content, F on technicalities because of grammar and spelling. It's truly ironic because all you have to do is hit F12 and Word Perfect and it would have done all the work for you. All right, so let's talk about emotional legitimization, okay? A lot of times when it comes to an emotion, especially if we're dealing with trauma, we're dealing with codependency, we're dealing with being gaslit, we're dealing with being dismissed, we disbelieve our emotions. We question them. We gaslight ourselves. We say, I shouldn't feel this way. I have to fix this. I'm feeling this feeling because there's something wrong with me. When in reality, what's going on is we're having an emotional response to a situation that is indeed validly scary or confusing or hurtful. See, the emotional response to the situation makes sense to the context the emotion arises in. But when we've dealt with toxic individuals, they're going to tell us we're too sensitive, we're crazy, we don't know what we're talking about. You don't know what happened. Why do you feel that way? Nobody feels that way. Does that sound familiar? You've got trauma coming up. You've got to stop that. You've got to work that out. Because what they're really saying, the subtext there is, you should not feel this way about how I'm treating you. My friends, that's bullshit. That's how abusers bypass accountability, and this is how they make you an enemy to you, because your emotional response to the way you're being treated is valid. It's the big signal from within you, your true voice, your value is talking loud. It's saying, this hurts, this has to stop. This is where that boundary is showing up, because your values are being violated, and your voice is saying, hey, this is wrong. This hurts. This needs to stop. But because we are not conditioned to believe ourselves, instead we're conditioned to doubt ourselves, we run over and start, believing them and then trying to heal ourselves and fix ourselves. So we get into therapy. We get into coaching. We get into programs. We start learning tools like EFT or the Sedona method or CBT or DBT or whatever it might be, to fix feelings that are showing up in a natural response to a legitimate problem. See the problem? See what's going on there? If this is making sense, let me know in the comments below, guys. Because this is a powerful concept. When you stop disbelieving what you feel, and you start going, I feel this way for a reason, a valid reason, then we can hit the brakes, And we can ask ourselves, what's the context of my experience right now? Because there is one caveat that gets in here for us, and this is trauma. Now, I'm an individual that's dealt with what's called borderline personality disorder. Okay, I have it in the respect that that's the diagnosis I had years and years ago. So, having healed that and worked it through, I had to do a really important component. I had to realize that while I was having an emotional reaction to somebody else's behavior, I had to develop a context around that behavior to make sure my emotional reaction wasn't speaking from trauma, or if it was speaking to a real event in the current time frame, right? Now, this doesn't have really anything to do specifically with borderline personality, but it does have to do with trauma, because trauma puts us into a reactive state to protect ourselves, which means the brain can interpret events incorrectly, and then we have this big, reaction to something that isn't contextually accurate. That does, again, not mean that your feeling is wrong. It doesn't mean you're crazy. It means that the situation, the actual context of who's involved, what is happening, what's the agreement, what are the events, what are the facts of the situation, say something different than what the trauma would say. Does that make sense? So if I am in a relationship and she sends me let's make this real. I'm not going to make this hypothetical. So part of my challenge, my growth in life is my ambivalent avoidant attachment, right? I avoid and I just get ambivalent. I'm done, kind of thing. Well, if someone has a concern, I would typically be ambivalent and walk away. These days, I need to lean into it, but I have to do it based on whom I'm dealing with, right? So my prior traumatic history of being absorbed and enmeshed and controlled leads me to being ambivalent and avoidant, because the emotions would be denied and gaslighted and I would be controlled. So that led to that attachment style. Well, in current context, that's not going to work well with healthy people, right? So I have to remember who I'm dealing with. This is all about context. So when it comes to trauma, we need to understand our context and then evaluate it and then say, does this make sense to the situation? Because if it doesn't, then we need to go back and revisit the unmet needs that show up in that area and then meet them and help regulate that part of ourselves back into wholeness, back into connection, back into peace. All right. So now we can come back to emotional legitimization. Notice I did not gaslight myself in this example, because this is a real thing I deal with on a pretty regular basis because of the profundity, is that a word? The profoundness of the abuse that I endured for 25 years. It shaped me in that way, so I have to be really conscious about that. But that doesn't gaslight my feelings. My feelings have a legitimate reason for being there. It's just that they don't fit in the context of what the real experience is, which means I just need to regulate the need. See how this works? We stop gaslighting ourselves when we start saying, of course I feel the way I do because of what I've been through. Of course I feel the way I do because look what this situation is doing. Look at what this person is doing and saying. Of course I'm scared of them. They've beat me. Of course I'm scared of them. They've lied to me. They've attacked me. They've criticized me. They've attempted to control me. Guys, we're not here to get rid of these feelings. We're here to understand where they come from and then change the situation we're in by leaving the situation, the person, and creating something different elsewhere, especially if this person's an abusive person. I'm pretty outspoken on this. But if you're with someone who's abusive, don't try to save the relationship. Save yourself first. Abusive people do not deserve, they deserve accountability. Not compassion and understanding. They need accountability. Firm consequence and accountability. And sometimes that means, hey, you abused me. I'm out. I have zero tolerance policy for myself with abuse. If someone abuses me, I don't interact with that person again at any intimate level. Period. My happiness is more important than their than them, period. They can go off and deal with their shit somewhere else. I care about me first because they value me. That's really, really important. To really, guys, when we believe our feelings and we legitimize them, we stop tolerating shit. We stop tolerating abuse. We stop tolerating being gaslit. We stop tolerating being told we don't know what's going on. We're crazy. We're too sensitive. No. People in your life are doing that on a chronic basis. Get out. If they do it once and you confront it, you're like, that is not appropriate. Do not tell me what my feelings are. And then you say, I want to be respected emotionally, which means you say, I get it. I see what you're feeling. Let's talk about it. Period. Nothing else. Healthy people care about how you feel. So they're not interested in manipulating you. They're interested in understanding who you are, what you need, what you're feeling, and then connecting with that in the best way they know how. Okay? So healthy people, even if they're developing skills or they're just trying to work out some bad habits, are going to endeavor lean into that space so that they can connect with you. Okay, and that's the big, big deal. And that can be hard. That can be tricky. Communication, especially in a vulnerable space, can be damn hard. So it's a thing. It's a learningness, right? It's a journey. It's an experience over and over and over. Shanti says this is so validating. There's a direct dynamic of conflict and bypassing your truth. Yep. Yeah. Unhealthy people, narcissistic people specifically, are never going to validate what you feel because it gives them power to make you crazy. Their goal is to control supply. Supply is whatever they get from the other person that inflates their image of themselves. I call it narcissistic inflation. And why would they feed someone something they need if that would then lead that person to move away from them, right? They want control, not connection. They want benefit, not connection, okay? Not reciprocity. So that's what they do there. But even deeper than this, guys, because in the happiness strategy, like this coming Monday, in week 7, we start emotional legitimization. And legitimization is the process of coming into alignment, becoming our own emotional ally. It's to say, yes, of course I feel this way. It's not, oh, I need to fix this. It's, no, I feel this way. This matters. This is important. It's to acknowledge that, because we got to get back in our voice, right? The big goal here is once we connect back to innate value, we got to get right into our voice, which means we've got to start listening. And to listen, we have to legitimize our first voice, which is our somatic voice, which is going to show up as feelings. So it's like, oh, of course I feel this way. Look what I've been dealing with. Now, you don't have to fix what you feel, because what you feel is not broken. It is not wrong. The situation has to be addressed. That doesn't mean the other person changes, by the way. That means you determine what you need as a person for your happiness. You determine how you need it, and then you find out who fits that profile. That's the what, how, who process of learning, of choosing people to be in your life. That doesn't mean I know what I want and how I want it. Now I got to make that person fit into it, because that's what codependents do. We think that we need to change the other person. Let me cancel that because that's the laundry's done. We got to get them to change, and that's not true. We don't have to change who we are, what we feel either. We need to change who we're putting in that spot. Meaning, if I'm in a toxic relationship, toxic person is gone, and I'm going to learn how to choose healthy people based on the 7 elements of healthy relating, which is boundaries, reliability, accountability, vault, which is for privacy, integrity, non-judgment, and generosity, and then my core values on top of that, and then compatibility. This is how we build happy, healthy relationships. So this is never going, I'm not one that condones the idea that I need to make a relationship work. If it's not working, especially if there's abuse involved, I'm out. Abuse is a non-tolerable, 0 tolerance. period. I don't give a shit about their trauma. I don't give a shit about their childhood. I don't care what they're struggling with, because I've been abused to high water. You likely have been through it. And are you out there abusing people? Are you hurting people? No, you're not. You're not gaslighting them and controlling them and manipulating them. And that's because you're actually human. You have empathy. You care about the impact you have on other people. Dealing with abusive people that do not take ownership and do not change, done, out. Just, it's over. Because abusive people think differently. They look at the world differently. They have a different worldview. They're entitled to treat people the way they do because they feel a certain way. Okay? If I'm not happy, nobody's happy. That's the mentality, and that's a dangerous mentality to be involved with at all. Because if they aren't regulated by what you do, they're going to punish you for it. And this is why you feel crazy and abused. So ultimately, guys, emotional legitimization is not just, I trust my feelings. It's not just, oh, I have a feeling. It's believing the validity of it. It's like, I feel this way because of what I'm going through, not because there's something wrong with me. I'm feeling this way because of the circumstances. It's a message to you. A message about what's happening. Because in healthy relationships, you're going to feel loved. You're going to feel seen. You're going to feel valued for who you are. And you're not going to know how to deal with it at first, because if you've been through, especially narcissistic abuse or chronic neglect, those kinds of things, these are very foreign experiences. But you're going to be like, they really show up. They really care. They love me for me. I don't have to earn this. That's a very different place to grow in. That's where, if trauma or programming is showing up, that's where the healing component comes in. Okay? But you're not supposed to be able to get better while in a toxic situation, because a toxic situation is toxic. There's nothing to get better. There's just things to leave, so that then you can deal with the impact of that relationship and that experience. So my friends, don't gaslight yourself. Believe the validity of your feelings. They are legitimate. They are there because of what you have been through. When you start to believe in the validity of your feelings, you will radically change the way you relate to other people and to situations, because you'll realize, I'm feeling this way, there's something going on. You'll slow down, you'll outline the context of the situation, and you'll see what you want based on your values and on your voice, not what they want. Because guess what? Our job isn't to give them what they want. Our job isn't to be concerned with what they want. Our job is always, first and foremost, what do I want? What works for me here? This isn't a me-only statement, by the way. This is a me and you, but the order is extremely important. Me and you. I must come first in order to know what I'm willing to contribute to you and what I'm willing to receive from you based on what works for me. And healthy people do this because they're doing the same thing. If you're dealing with a healthy person, they're doing the same, me and you. So what do I want? What do I want to contribute? What would I like to receive? And then we talk about it, we create an agreement, or we conclude that that isn't going to function for us there. That's how healthy systems function. I know it's simplistic and there can be complications because of overlapping ideals, some complications or complexity with conflicting desires and things. So it can get a little complicated. But at the fundamental, if we're willing to understand what each other needs and wants, and we can connect with that, then we win. That's the beauty of it. But that all starts with believing the validity of your emotions. That starts with realizing that you, one, as a person are legitimate, and two, what you feel is legitimate. When you nail that, when you understand that, everything else becomes a lot easier to deal with, because now if you're having a compulsion to regulate the other person, for instance, or you're really obsessed or fixated on what they feel or think, like for instance a spouse, because maybe you've changed the relationship and now they're really upset and they're hurting and you're leaving and they're angry. Guess what? you can step into your feelings and say, I have the right to occupy this space, which means if I feel indifferent to how they feel, then you get the right to feel that. That's a legitimate experience and feeling. Your job isn't to regulate other human beings anyway. These are grown-ass adults. I mean, you're not dealing with a child, right? They're not 3 or 5, right? If they're a child, that's different. They have different requirements. But an adult does not. That grown-ass adult now gets the chance to grow up and learn some skills. Not through you, not you doing their work. They determine that, hey, I want to get better. They go out and do the work themselves. Not you. No rescuing. Okay, guys? So believe yourself. Respect yourself. Respect those feelings. Understand the context of what you're experiencing, and then look at your emotions and go, oh, of course I feel this way. Look at what I'm experiencing. If you're in a context that the feeling doesn't line up with, then legitimize it and go, of course I feel this way. Look at what I've been through in the past. And I'm willing to see what this new context teaches me. This is the magic, guys. This is what breaks us of the codependent compulsions to regulate other people's feelings. It's what breaks us from out of the pattern of absorbing other people. Because if you take legitimization and you combine it with retrieving your value from other people's rejection and approval, you'll become a powerhouse in being yourself. That's the magic of this system. That's it. These 2 steps fundamentally have changed everything I do in my life over the last 8 years. When I finally understood I keep seeking my value outside of me and I took it back in, and even now my body's just like, oh yeah, time to sleep, time to rest. We do it with everything. We do it with people's disappointment, their pain, and their confusion. We do it with work. We do it with money. We do it with business. We do it with love. We do it with performance. We do it with it all. Get your value back, and then legitimize how you feel about the experiences you've been through. And your healing will make huge leaps. Huge leaps. Leaps you don't even anticipate yet, because suddenly you are free to be you again. And that's the brilliance of this. So that's me on that's me today, guys. So there you go. Let me know what you think about this in the comments below. I really like hearing your points of view. It helps me understand how I'm communicating, if these things make sense. One of my big values is effectiveness, so that's why I ask your feedback. It matters to me. Plus, I want to know if there's an impact there, if this is relevant to your journey. Okay, guys? I appreciate you. Remember that you're worth knowing, loving, and keeping, and be safe out there. Be happy. Go play. It's Saturday. Here it's a beautiful day. It's almost 60 degrees. I'm going to go out and play with the Chevelle a little bit. And I will see you guys on Tuesday for our next training. If there's a topic you want me to talk on, feel free to mention it on a comment. You can post it on my Facebook wall. Whatever you'd like to do there. Okay, guys? I appreciate you. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.